This is Western Canada's wrestling radio show.
You're going to have fun tonight.
Welcome to McGuire on Wrestling.
A dazzling wrestling exhibition.
Here is Mike McGuire.
I love professional wrestling. You heard right. This show is all about professional wrestling. Now, hold on. For those of you that are new here, allow me to reintroduce ourselves. Those of you that have been here for a while, let's welcome our new friends here. We are on a brand new radio station with McGuire on Wrestling starting today, January the 11th. Although if you're listening on one of our stations in Alberta, January the 12th, AM 1150 in Kelowna, the Okanagan Valley. Shout out to Penticton. Can't forget about you guys. A shout out to Peachland. Oh, made some memories in Peachland. We'll talk about that another day. But we are here to talk about the world of pro wrestling in a way you may have never heard before. Each and every week, we do this show for you. On Sundays, it's produced up to the minute. We have special guests that tell you about the business behind the scenes. We talk about some of the crazy and silly stuff we see on TV. Maybe your kid is a big pro wrestling fan, or maybe you are the pro wrestling fan in the family. I think no matter what, we've all had that person in our lives, right? That person that we know watches pro wrestling. We hear a wild story from that world every once in a while, and we know that's the person we can go to and ask, hey, what's the deal with this? I heard this happen. Well, I'm that guy for you. Myself and our whole team, we do shows every week on a podcast feed called Celebrate Wrestling. You can find that for free wherever you get your favorite podcasts, but it all culminates every week on this show, McGuire on Wrestling, online and on the radio. And again, we're so stoked to be a part of AM 1150's lineup now. Each and every Sunday night, 9 p.m. Pacific is where you'll hear the show. If you like listening on the radio but have missed an episode, or if you want to maybe get some advanced listening, that's on the pod feed. We invite you to be a part of our community. We have a great online community on our Celebrate Wrestling radio and podcasts Facebook page. Okay, that is kind of the general page you want to follow for up-to-the-date information. And then we have a group discussion page as well. And we do that because, let's face it, the internet can be a bit of a cesspool. So we try and keep it as lighthearted and as fun as possible. And that's where those conversations take place. You'll meet hundreds of pro wrestling fans from around the world that have all come together because of our shows. And it's a ton of fun. So just look up Celebrate Wrestling on social media, and you can find it all at CelebrateWrestling.com. Coming up on the show this week, we're going to take you back to WWE and their collaboration with Netflix, and why the Stranger Things episode may have drawn a lot of attention, but may have also landed with a bit of a thud. Also, we have a new WWE Champion. Drew McIntyre has secured the gold and is making the most of it. Where, oh where, is Chris Jericho? The rumor mill is swirling. Could he be returning at the Royal Rumble, or could he be coming back to AEW? There's also an option 3 that has popped into recent conversation. As All Elite Wrestling gets ready to take over Western Canada in the spring, we take a look at what's going on there. Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer is on the show, and we're going to talk about some of these stories and more. Plus, going to bring you some of the show from Dungeon Wrestling in Calgary, Alberta. This is the closest to Stampede Wrestling you'll ever get. It's run by the Hart family, including the Hitman himself being on site. We'll see who we can talk to at that show, and you'll meet some of our fellow podcasters and more. So who am I, and why am I asking you to give this show a chance? Well, a couple reasons. First of all, I'm a radio guy. Okay, I do a morning show in Lethbridge, Alberta. It's called The Mike McGuire Show. Very creative, almost as creative as McGuire on Wrestling, to be honest with you. But it is a morning show that I've been doing now for a few years, and then I've been doing radio for, dear Lord, over 20 years now. But believe it or not, I've actually been involved in pro wrestling and around it for longer than that. I grew up as a kid, as a fan, watching it. I tried amateur wrestling in high school. I was not good, but I did train for several years to be a pro wrestler. I got okay at it, but it was actually a work injury that prevented me from continuing my training. And if you actually go back in our podcast feeds, you can hear these stories. I got to know the inner workings of pro wrestling thanks to local wrestling promotions I was involved with in places like Edmonton and Regina and Saskatoon and Calgary and small town Alberta. And once upon a time, I even managed to put on a show in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, at one of the resorts there while hosting a radio station trip. That's a crazy story that some people who've been listening for a long time know, but if you don't, I'll probably have to share it again in the future here. It's one of my most favorite things in life. With our new affiliation with AM 1150, I will be making my way out to shows in BC soon, so maybe we can shake hands and chat wrestling live face-to-face sometime. But as far as my involvement today, I already mentioned Dungeon Wrestling, which is the most legitimate spin-off you'll ever get of Stampede Wrestling. Okay, we're in the Victoria Pavilion, the classic hall there. We do shows every couple months. We bring in some of the best talent from across Canada and around the world, just like the good old days. And Calgary is a bumping market. But at the same time, I do shows in smaller markets all across Western Canada. I ring announce, I do production, I'll help out wherever I can, because even though I can't get in the ring and wrestle, I have such a respect for what these guys and girls do, and that's why I love talking to them. You'll meet wrestlers from all over the place, some of the biggest stars in the world, all the way down to some of those up-and-coming wrestlers. We do things on the podcast feed called an Independent Spotlight, where, again, if you go to CelebrateWrestling.com, you'll see some of those. Some names that are notorious through British Columbia throughout the years, the decades, and maybe names you grew up watching are part of this show as well. I did mention Bret Hart. He's been on the show a number of times, maybe on the show again very soon. We see each other every once in a while, and I put a microphone in front of his face. He likes to tell stories. Then again, we've got some contacts in All Elite Wrestling, WWE, TNA Wrestling, and a bunch more, and we try and bring you interviews and conversations that are actually interesting to listen to, not just the usual pablum you'd get, or questions that run way too deep into the wrestling ethos that if you're not a huge fan, you wouldn't fully relate to. So that is what we do here each and every week. On top of that, we do bring in some of the most interesting names that track the business side of things. One of the biggest and, frankly, most controversial joins us on the show almost every week. His name is Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer. I mentioned earlier he's going to be on today's show. The Wrestling Observer started as a newsletter some 50 years ago now. And Dave has been synonymous with getting all the inside information straight from sources in the biggest wrestling companies, and that continues to this day. So Dave will come on. He's also one of those people that has like an encyclopedic, almost eidetic memory of events, and he does have his opinions. He has his biases, as we all do as fans. Now, even me saying that has some people going, oh yeah, Dave is against this and loves this. It's not that simple. And if you actually get to listen to Dave on this show in particular, you'll find that you get a guy who is very analytical, but at the same time has what he likes and what he doesn't like. And that's what this show is all about. We're not always going to love everything. And there will be times we talk about things on this show that we go, that was weird. But for the most part, it's about having fun, talking about pro wrestling, and giving you something to think about that's a little different in this crazy world around us. So without further ado, let's get down to what we do. Welcome to McGuire on Wrestling. We like to start each show off by looking at some of the biggest stories of the week in a segment called The 5 Count.
You want to hear the breaking news?
Well, one of the big stories was the 1-year anniversary of WWE teaming up with Netflix, and they had their 1-year anniversary edition of Monday Night Raw, which was co-branded with the hit series Stranger Things. They had decorated the arena, the sets, and everywhere else like the TV show. However, one thing that was noticeably missing was an appearance from any cast member of the show. No pre-tapes, not even really that many highlights from Stranger Things, but they did the best with what they could. 4 big matches headlined the show, including 2 title changes. The Women's Tag Team Championships went to Rhea Ripley and Io Sky. The Women's Intercontinental Championship has been reclaimed by the Man Becky Lynch, and CM Punk managed to retain his World Heavyweight Championship against Braun Breaker. Now, fan feedback on this show has been mixed, as it usually is with pro wrestling. Nevertheless, it looks like some big angles are being set up for the future. Now, another glaring omission, at least in some fans' eyes, and frankly my own as well, was a lack of Chris Jericho. The Winnipeg native has been rumored to be returning to WWE any day now, and a lot of people were thinking that maybe the January 5th show might be the way to go. Jericho, who is now 55 years old, is still in great shape and has been wrestling for All Elite Wrestling for the last few years. That deal has reportedly expired, although he was still listed on the AEW roster and was in Los Angeles while Monday Night Raw was in Brooklyn, New York. Still, for those of you holding out hope that Y2J may return to WWE, the Royal Rumble is just a few weeks away. We jump over to the other side of the world as following New Japan Pro Wrestling's Wrestle Kingdom 20, which is basically their WrestleMania or their Super Bowl over there, AEW star Will Ospreay made an appearance at New Japan's New Year's Dash event. Now, Will was once a member of the group called United Empire, but since leaving New Japan, Callum Newman has been heading the group. Ospreay had these words for Callum.
Once I'm back, we'll get the United Empire boys back together and we'll take over New Japan just like what we did. I'll do it your way.
All Elite Wrestling fans and New Japan fans haven't seen Will Ospreay in action for months after having surgery to take care of a herniated disc. Ospreay last wrestled in a lights-out steel cage match at Forbidden Door, London. According to some medical articles, the average recovery time for an injury like this is about 12 weeks, but then, of course, there is the training to get back in ring shape and get used to taking those bumps again, so the jury's out as to when Will Ospreay will actually make a return to the ring and where. As WWE's developmental brand NXT has some talents being called up to the big league, the company they've been working alongside, TNA Wrestling, which has been around for decades now, is making a big U.S. network debut premiering on AMC live this Thursday. So far, a couple matches have been announced, but fans are also suspecting there's going to be some surprises on this show. Some even going as far as speculating that Chris Jericho might pop up there before showing up in WWE. I don't know how likely that one's going to be, but you never know. The world of wrestling is unpredictable. Either way, TNA debuts on AMC this Thursday. Up until now, it's only been available on rather hard-to-find cable channels, and of course, online through TNA Plus. And this is a bit of a weird story, but an independent wrestling promoter in the United States, Arkansas to be specific, is suing WWE and TKO for stealing an entrance. Which entrance? Roman Reigns and the Bloodline specifically. Also named in the lawsuit are the WWE video game makers 2K, who of course have licenses on all sorts of sports. But he says flat out that WWE and 2K have stolen the sequence in which a series of maneuvers, or quote, a distinctive, repeatable visual sequence for a faction in WCWA. They call themselves Tier 1. Now the sequence is the entrance is a ringside action coming to a deliberate halt, entering with a brief but intentional pause, a designated leader or cueing performer initiating the sequence by raising one arm upward in a visual cue, and other members follow in a staggered but coordinated succession. So basically, when one puts one arm up and the rest follow. See, wrestling fans know this as putting your ones up. That's what this is. Anyway, this guy says that he created it and thus wants money for it. It's a 30-page lawsuit. WWE has until the 21st of January to respond. Well, coming up, we're going to take you to Calgary and Dungeon Wrestling, the shows that I commentate and ring announce for. We'll see who we can dig up at that show. Plus, we're going to have Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer talking about some of the biggest headlines, the biggest gossip, and more. It's all right here on McGuire on Wrestling. Thanks for being here.
This is McGuire on Wrestling. More than just McGuire on Wrestling, the Celebrate Wrestling podcast feed. Andy Evans and Stephen Bennett take you back to some of wrestling's biggest moments on Legends and Champions.
For many a seasoned fan conjures images not of glory, but of a truly spectacular failure.
My brother testified.
Laugh along with Mitch and DImitri on the alternate commentary table.
Hello, Triple A Plumbing, Spiro speaking.
Oh, sorry, I was looking for quadruple A. No, this bomb.
Celebrate Wrestling wherever fine podcasts are carried. It's time for the Wrestling Observer Insider with Dave Meltzer, McGuire on Wrestling.
Well, as often as he can, Dave Meltzer joins us on the show weekly. And for those that don't know who Dave is, the founder of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, have been doing this for, again, we talked earlier about it, decades. And Dave,
decades.
Many.
Full lifetime, really.
Yeah. Maybe a couple lifetimes, really. Longer than I've been alive, I think, Dave. I don't want to make you feel too old when I say that. But
yeah. Longer than most people have been alive.
For those of you joining us here on the new station, AM 1150, Dave offers his insight. We talk about the business sometimes, and sometimes we just talk about what we see on TV like every other wrestling fan out there. You know, it's funny, Dave. We had a couple of Dungeon Wrestling shows over the weekend. One was the regular one I do, and then the other one was at the Calgary Saddle Dome during a Hitmen game. They do a wrestling at the Dome night.
Oh, like a between periods thing or before the game?
Yeah, exactly. So I didn't work that game. I just was there as a fan, basically. I helped Brett with a meet and greet thing he was doing, taking some pictures and stuff. And then it was funny just being in the arena and watching matches as a fan and watching how other people who aren't exposed to wrestling all the time react to wrestling.
It is interesting when you watch without like normal wrestling fans. And see, like, like some of the stuff that gets over with wrestling fans doesn't really with them, and then some of the stuff does. You know, it is always interesting. You know, that's why I really love watching Arena Mexico, because 30% of that crowd is tourists, and they're reacting not in the way of a wrestling fan. They're acting in the way of someone who is at a wrestling show, doesn't know anyone except for maybe one or two people, and is just there because they hear, hey, it's a good time on Friday night.
So like we've been saying on the show today, because it is kind of a reintroduction of the same show that a lot of our listeners are used to, but, we talk about that from the perspective of you might learn something about the wrestling business you didn't know here. Now, Dave, sometimes you and I go way into the weeds, and we talk about some of the businesses and the lawsuits and all these things that are going on. There is one going on. We will. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and
right here.
The funniest thing, too, is like sometimes the lawsuits come for the weirdest things. I talked about this in the 5 count, where the guy is suing WWE and 2K for the gesture of walking to the ring, saying that the Bloodline entrance is actually his faction's entrance. And so that's a lawsuit that's actually, it's a 30-page lawsuit. Like, is this a case you think where the guy might have a legitimate claim, or is this maybe he's hoping to get a payout?
I haven't studied that case, but in most of those cases are just grasping, I mean, but some of them are real. I mean, the one with Cody Rhodes, I mean, it's like, look, they were in negotiations and things happened, and then Cody blew up, and things happened.
And so for Cody Rhodes, you're talking about the name American Nightmare, because that was the name of a band, right?
That was the name of a band, and he knew it, and they all made a deal, and then Cody got so big, and whatever. Then there's the lawsuit in the United States about they sued WWE over going on TV and claiming that if you got ESPN, you would be able to get the pay-per-views for free, when in fact half the people who got ESPN could not get the pay-per-views for free. And they absolutely did say that. I mean, it was like, I remember when that thing was going on and they were trying to explain, how if you got ESPN, you get the pay-per-views for free. And I was thinking, like, I get ESPN and I can't get the pay-per-views for free. And
I remember we talked about that, though, because that was the explanation that you were given. We were all given at the first hop, right? So
So it's like, so they're getting sued over that, over basically, and ESPN kind of did the same thing, but they're not suing ESPN because there's a clause in the ESPN deal that has to go to arbitration. So therefore, they're only suing WWE, so it doesn't have to go to arbitration. There's many, many lawsuits going on, and several of the ones against Vince, it seems like something minor breaks almost every week, because there's like 3 or 4 big ones against Vince.
Well, it's funny. You'd be amazed if you really dug into court records and things. I mean, so many celebrities, and especially, and no offense to the United States, but y'all are litigious people. And there seems to be a reason to file a lawsuit for anything against anybody. And some of the most famous people you never think would have a spec against them. Somebody will come up with some, I'll say crazy lawsuit, but...
Well, there's a lot of what we call nuisance lawsuits, where the idea is like, rather than waste so much time in court, we'll just give you $20,000 to go away. Those types of things, and they exist. And some of these, I think that's all they are, but some of them are not that. I mean, some of them are very serious.
Well, isn't it true? There used to be a company, WCW, and isn't it true that a lot of times, if you brought a lawsuit to WCW, they would just opt to pay it out, just not to go to court?
Absolutely. Yeah, they had a rep for that.
Because wrestlers were getting rich off that, weren't they?
Not just WCW, but the whole Turner organization. You would think this giant organization, you know what I mean, that they would have lawyers that would want to fight it, but they didn't. They always file suit, we'll just pay you and go away. And that's what obviously that attracts lawsuits.
Craziness. Well, Dave, let's talk a little bit about what's going on TV here for those that have been following along. Of course, SmackDown in Germany this week. A lot of international shows coming up as they get ready for the Royal Rumble in Saudi Arabia. I was talking to some people who are going to be overseas. A lot of people actually weren't there for the SmackDown taping, which was kind of interesting. Like there seem to be flying people over in stages as they go across Europe and other places. But Cody Rhodes, no longer the WWE Champion after what I thought was a fun finish, given Drew McIntyre being the character that he is these days, but kind of finally getting his just reward. He got to take the title back to Scotland, which he's always been saying he wanted to do. What are your thoughts about this whole thing? I mean, is this okay, Cody, without the championship? Is this going to be fine? Yeah, it's fine. I didn't have any problem with it at all. I mean, I think the thing with Drew is that like he'd been chasing and been pinned in every time. To me, the storyline was kind of ridiculous because, like, why does he keep getting chances? You know, when they did that angle, you know, with the bus and everything to kind of make an excuse where Cody would want him. But eventually you got to win or you got to move on. And I mean, it's the thing about it is I think the first thing about it is that they really have done a very poor job of making contenders because Cody's been champion forever, you know, since he beat Cena. And in that entire time, Drew was the obvious contender. Okay. So they did that, and it's like they've made no other contenders. Nobody else has really seriously been in a program with them, and now they got this. And, you know, I figure they're still going to end up with Cody and Roman Reigns come WrestleMania unless they've changed that plan. And then, you know, from there, how it gets to wherever it gets is fine. I mean, I think Drew kind of had to win this one. It's been too many matches with Cody winning. There's no reason Cody has to be champion for a long period of time. He's had his long run. You can bounce it around. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, unless it gets, you know, you don't want to be doing it every month, but you can do it every couple months. So I have no problem with that at all. You're listening to McGuire on Wrestling. We have Dave Meltzer with us on the radio and online as well. And Dave, the Raw anniversary on Netflix was this past week as well on Monday. It was a Stranger Things themed episode. Strangest thing, not a whisper of the cast on the entire show. We saw maybe a clip.
There was almost no tie-in at all. And I mean, the tie-ins that they had were so forced and fake. So it's kind of like, yeah, and there were cast members in New York, you know, on that day, but they didn't come. So I don't know what it means. I mean, it probably helped the numbers. That's what people in WWE sort of said, because they go like, what? That was like the worst tie-in I've ever seen. It's, well, Netflix promoted it, probably helps the numbers. And you know, the numbers for Monday's show look to be, you know, way up from usual. But that's also because, you know, they had a loaded up lineup. And then there was the Jericho tease, you know, which they did. I mean, I thought that CM Punk was like so disingenuous when he came out afterwards and goes, you know, you guys fantasy book and you didn't get it and you complain. It's like, no, Adam Pearce said what he said. And you can pretend, oh, he meant something from Stranger Things. You know he didn't mean it. They were doing that as a publicity stunt to get people to watch. It worked. But then people chanted Jericho, you know, Y2J at the show, which, you know, because they were expecting him and he wasn't there. And it's like, yeah, because you promoted it, that he was going to be there. And everyone knows.
Okay, so to be fair, we got to talk about this. This is two different things. So one was obviously, yes, the Jericho tease. I mean, I even talked about it on this show with you about the whole Adam Pearce, you know, who's going to break the wall down to win championship gold. That's fair. If you're a wrestling fan, you glob on to every word. Absolutely. That's your tease. That's in.
Yeah.
The CM Punk thing was an interview the day after on a podcast called Your Mom's Basement, where he was talking. And to be honest, I kind of agree with him on the point of what he was saying, because I do feel that we are in an expectation generation. And
I agree. Okay, so I agree when he says people fantasy book, don't get it and get mad. I agree with him completely on that, which is what I said on the thing. But this specific thing was something that the company teased. If you're going to blame somebody on fans being mad that they didn't get Jericho and all that at the show, that you blame the company. You can't be blaming anybody else, because the company's the one that.
Well, I love the guy, but I'm going to directly blame Adam Pearce. I'm going to hold that on.
Oh, obviously, he's not the one to blame.
No, but that poor guy, if you ever follow his social media, it's hilarious because people buy into the character, right? So he gets hammered with every little thing that goes wrong on Raw, you know,
that's the job, you know.
That's
what I mean?
it. Yep. That's
him and all this. I mean, that's the job. It's like people actually blame them because in storyline they should be in charge, and unfortunately, WWE storylines very often don't make sense, and they're the public figures that you blame for how come this happened like this. It makes no sense. It's like, well, that's
you play the face of the company, pal. Enjoy the comments.
Well, I'm sure he doesn't take it seriously.
No, but at the same time, it's just fun to watch. Like I was talking to John Pollock from Post Wrestling. We had him on the holiday show, and we were just laughing to ourselves each about just go to the comments if you ever need to humble yourself on anything. You ever need to you're feeling too good about yourself, you need to be humbled. Just go to your comments.
Oh yeah.
Not that I need to tell you about social media, Dave, but. If you don't follow Dave Meltzer on Twitter, it's an interesting experience. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about some more Jericho rumblings here because there is another thread going out there. And TNA Wrestling has been this long-standing company for basically decades now as well. And this is the company that will not die. They are being given another lease at life here, debuting on AMC across the U.S., AMC Plus internationally as well. So if you don't get AMC Direct, you can still see TNA Wrestling starting this Thursday. And AJ Styles from WWE has now been announced to be a part of the show. They're going to have the Hardys in a big tag match as well. But there's also been this new rumbling, and I don't know how much of this is fantasy rumbling and how much of this is legit, but sources, if you want to go on the internet, are now saying that Jericho is, quote, strongly interested in a TNA run. Why would this be the case? And if so, do you think it's actually true?
Oh, anything's possible. Jericho's always thinking, and the way he thinks, I wouldn't put it past him. I think that probably depends more on, he's going to look at all the options. And the thing is like he's got a lot of money, and not that he doesn't care about money because he does, but he cares more about longevity. So right. I think he's going to make whatever moves he makes are going to be the moves based on longevity. The one thing with WWE is, yes, they want him, but they want to do the Chris Jericho retirement, right? And he may not want to retire, in which case WWE, while it would offer the most money, may not be to his liking. He may, he could still go back to AEW, but I don't think so. I think it's been so long, and I think that if he was going to choose AEW, he'd been there. And number two, there have been things that he's said and done that make me think he's done with AEW. It also could be to throw you off scent. It's like, and I mean, he's been completely quiet, and
he's done it before though. Like, so I want to take you back to the way, way old days when like Chris Jericho's website was one of the top visited wrestling websites because there were so few wrestling websites out there. And I remember one day he flashed a TNA logo on his website for no reason, no context, no nothing. And it was just there just to get people talking about the website.
Yeah, and that is what he's doing. Yeah, I think he's just looking, I'm sure he's looking for chatter until he makes his move. But what his move is going to be, I'm pretty sure only a few people know. It's not like anyone in WWE is telling me anything. And it's not like Tony just says, oh, I love Chris Jericho, but he never gives you any answers if you ask that question.
So the thing to me, though, is that almost now the jumps between WWE and AEW, and for those that don't know about All Elite Wrestling, we're going to talk about them in just a second as well, but the jumps between WWE and AEW, they don't seem to have as much scuttlebutt around them anymore. And we see this with Andrade, who's literally been ping-ponged between the two now over the last year or so. But would it be considered more of a slap in the face to an AEW or even to a Tony Khan if Jericho went to TNA rather than WWE? Do you think there would be any perception of like, oh, wait, so you're not going to come back to us, but you're going to go to them?
I don't know how Tony views things. I don't think so. I think that it's again, the equalizer is always money, and he'll make a lot more in AEW, I think, than he would make in TNA, but I think he's not looking at short-term money. As far as like where he would go to get, like he could go to TNA and be their world champion. He's not going to be world champion in AEW at this stage. He's not going to be I don't think he'll be world champion in WWE, but I think he has a better shot there because he's new and fresh. It's always good. It's like modern wrestlers generally don't go back and forth, but for career longevity, the best thing to do is go back and forth. And it's not like Andrade planned this out. He, Andrade lucked into it, but it's the best thing for him. Best thing for him was to get out of it, to get out of WWE. He was going nowhere there. So he's out. He's in AEW. People think it's a coup. He'll probably get a little bit of a push. I think Andrade is actually probably going to do better in outside of AEW on the indies. He'll be a giant star if they let him do dates, and they are right now letting him do dates. So that's which is the opposite of WWE, because you can see with Joey Janela, not Joey, Matt Cardona. Matt Cardona had to drop everything, when he signed, and Andrade signed with AEW, and he's doing his indies. So it's just two different ways of thinking.
I've heard this talked about in a few different places, and we're going to jump over to All Elite Wrestling now, and Andrade showing up as part of the Don Callis family faction. Dave, do we have an active count on how many members are now in the Don Callis family?
Everyone. Between that and we've got 400 people in the Ops Dojo in every city, and Don Callis family expands every single week. Yeah. It's very NWO-ish,
According to Google, says at least 14 members right now. I think that's low. I think that's got to be.
I think there might be more than that. Yeah.
Well, I'm looking now, and I'm seeing at least 15 members, with Jake Doyle being added.
Yeah.
The former Jake something of TNA Wrestling. Wardlow is in there. Who again? Where's Wardlow? He comes and goes.
Injured.
Yeah. Brian Cage. Same story. He's been in and out. Lance Archer.
He was on TV last night.
Mark Davis obviously is a name there. Rocky Romero. Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy. And of course, we got
Beretta, Clone, Josh Alexander, Okada, Takeshita. Yeah, so many.
I mean,
Kyle,
is this working for them? Like, do you feel this is actually working for them, or is it becoming a little too cartoony for them?
Cartoony's not the word I would use. I think there's too many, but they don't think that. I mean, if I was him, I would concentrate on Hechicero is another name we didn't mention. Concentrate on the main guys. He's got like between Okada, Takeshita, Hechicero, Josh Alexander, Kyle Fletcher. Like that's a pretty main, pretty strong top, and Mark Davis too. But I think that the deal is that it kind of gives people credibility, because Callis gets a lot of heat real easy. He's real good at that. So it's better than just floundering. I mean, in that company, there's so many guys. You can be talented as hell, but you can flounder. And I think the idea is if you put them with Callis, at least they're going to be on TV, even if it's just standing in the background role, or Archer throwing people through the roof, of the backstage.
Don Callis, for those not familiar, out of Winnipeg, was a wrestler and a manager, and also once a government employee. So you just never know where these wrestling personalities are going to come from or go to.
Yeah.
Talking about All Elite Wrestling one more time here with Dave. Of course, Dave, a big thing in the business world. Everybody's been watching these constant offers from Paramount to want to buy out Warner Brothers Discovery. It looks like Netflix is still getting the deal, though, as far as things go, because Warner Brothers has told its shareholders, let's not take the Paramount deal. Let's go over here to Netflix. It's going to pay off in the long run here. Mm-hmm. If this happens, what does that mean for AEW? Because for those that don't know, AEW has a big tie-in with Warner Brothers Discovery. I mean, I know the easy answer to say right now is that we don't know, because we don't know how things are going to be divvied up. But the bottom line here, is this a threat to AEW because of Netflix's partnership with WWE?
Everything is a threat, okay? It just depends. There's so many different things. The key right now is who gets, the TV side will not go to Netflix because they're not buying the TV stations, okay? So they'll still be on TBS and TNT. But it's very clear fewer and fewer people are watching it on TBS and TNT, and they're probably more and more watching it on streaming. So the streaming, HBO Max, is going to Netflix. Mm-hmm. Now, if they're doing well on the streaming, then that's a good thing. Plus, the HBO Max gets a cut of the pay-per-view, which is millions of dollars a year. So that bodes them well, as far as there. But it could be that the streaming is going to move to a TNT Sports app and away from HBO Max. To me, that would be the biggest negative, because then you're on, instead of being in this app, this streaming service is one of the biggest in the world, you're going on one starting from scratch. At that point, though, the thing is that it may get really important, because to build that streaming service, AEW is a foundation, and cutting them at that point, in 2 years, if they're the ones who are help building the streaming service, that's a negative. It also could be a positive in the sense that if the streaming goes one way and the TV goes one way, they're going to negotiate two different deals. And perhaps the value would be such that they make more money because they're negotiating two deals instead of one. But their value is pure TV is way down from what it was, and their value is streaming is probably way up. So it's like, I mean, the bottom line is we don't know, but the next thing to wait for is like which does AEW end up on the TNT Sports app, or does AEW end up with HBO Max? And from there, then we can figure out many other things. So it absolutely puts them at risk. But they could end up being, it could be better than ever for them too, because being on, like with WWE, being on more than one, I think strengthens you than being on one. Because like with WWE, even if one person, let's say Netflix just is, tied to this, you still got all these other places you can go. Whereas with AEW, everyone's always been scared. Well, what if WBD says we're done with this? We don't want to go in that direction because they remember what happened with WCW, where one day the wrong executive came in and that was it. So it's essentially you don't know. You don't know. And from this standpoint, there's a step in that'll happen in the summer, and then which is the deciding which side gets the streaming. And after that, then we can see, a lot depends on essentially where AEW is in 2027.
This is McGuire on Wrestling on the radio and online. We're talking to the Wrestling Observer's Dave Meltzer, who, again, is a featured guest on the show more often than not. And Dave, the last thing I'm going to talk to you about today is this guy who seems to be coming out as the internet breakout star, and this doesn't often happen for WWE, but it is happening more and more. Kit Wilson, do they have lightning in a bottle with this guy?
I don't know.
I don't know, man. Like the entrance, I haven't even seen them use their video capabilities to the level that this guy did. And I don't even know if WWE produced it or if he had it done somewhere else or what. But the song, the intro, like people are glomming onto this guy like nobody's business all of a sudden.
We'll see. I mean, if WWE's behind it, I don't know. Like I see Kit Wilson on his own in a pretty tough situation. But if they decide to get behind him, then that's cool. If he gets over on his own, it helps you. But then that's a long process, because at first they'll just go, you're a cult figure, and it takes months of not being a cult figure because they've seen the hot thing come and go. So if they're behind it, it probably helps them. If they're not behind it and he's getting over, it'll probably take a while before they pick up on it, and they may not. And at some point, like LA Knight, the fans did get him to a certain level that management did not see him at, but they didn't get him past a certain level either. So
not yet, right? I mean, who knows? The future is so interesting. LA Knight's a great example. I mean, Joe Hendry, for goodness sake, they went through a year of batting him back and forth between TNA and cramming him into WWE wherever they could with him. And I don't know. I just see this being a thing where maybe we're not talking about him in a year. Maybe he's all we can talk about. But obviously his partner, Elton Prince, out due to that neck fusion we found out about this week. So I'm glad to hear that Prince is going to be okay by the sounds of things, but he's got a lot of work ahead of him. And
he's got a year off or more probably, though.
Yeah, and I'm glad to see, though, that Kit's getting an opportunity and that everything's okay there. Because, I mean, the other option would have been the exact opposite, right? Where it's like, hey, one guy's out, we don't need the team. And
yeah. Well, I mean, first thing they did with him is have Matt Cardona beat him. So it wasn't like they're sitting here with the idea we're going to make lightning in the bottle.
Well, but the follow-up the next week, though, this whole, I just see everybody in the crowd. This is like a whole you just made the list thing to me, where it's like, you are toxic.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. That sort of sounds like a prelim angle, but, sometimes prelim angles catch on.
I don't know, Dave. You're sounding kind of toxic to me, to be honest.
Yeah.
Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer. Before we let you go, of course, we like to find out some of the things you write about in your weekly newsletter that people can get at WrestlingObserver.com. Dave, tell us all about it.
Yeah, this issue is really big. We've got a lot on the career of Hiroshi Tanahashi, coverage of the Tokyo Dome. That show was a big success. All the business news from that.
Has he cut his hair yet? He said he was going to get a haircut after the match.
Yeah. I don't know if he has yet or not.
Okay. Sorry.
He had not as
Sorry.
He had not as a midweek. We got what was it? Oh God, we get a business year in review covering all the companies, biggest crowds, biggest pay-per-views. Got a list of the number one draw in professional wrestling every year from 1916 to 2025. And the biggest top 50 in history. So we kind of we do that once a year at the beginning of the year because obviously things change each year. And then story on Johnny Legend, who was a promoter of Incredibly Strange Wrestling, who just passed away, who had a crazy, crazy life. He was actually, I knew him as kind of like this underground music star in California. And, but he was a fan of Gorgeous George and Freddie Blassie, and he produced the song Pencil Neck Geek, which was kind of a cult favorite in the 70s.
Right.
And the album, the Freddie Blassie album, a lot on him. And, just WWE writing crew, all the changes that have been made. There's just basically where everyone stands right now on the WWE writing crew. We got that. Just a normal first week of news all over. First week is usually really big in Japan. It was really big in Mexico this year. And WWE, European tour, WWE, business going forward. It's a big issue with a lot of news, starting the new year and retrospective of the old year.
Well, we got a big week of wrestling ahead. Again, Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer helping us weed through some of the latest news. Dave, we'll talk to you again soon. Thank you so much.
Okay, have a great week.
I don't know, still sounding kind of toxic to me. Anyway, big thanks to Dave Meltzer, and thank you for checking us out. This is McGuire on Wrestling, on the radio and online, radio stations across Western Canada, and so proud to be here with you. Coming up next, I was on a Dungeon Wrestling show this past weekend in Calgary, Alberta, and you're going to meet a couple of our podcasters, Mitch and DImitri from the Alternate Commentary Table, and we're going to talk all about Drew McIntyre now being the WWE Champion and defeating Cody Rhodes. Remember, your feedback always welcome. Find CelebrateWrestling.com, head to our social media, and join the club.
This is McGuire on Wrestling. McGuire on Wrestling, Western Canada's wrestling radio show.
Brett the Hitman Hart, how are you, sir?
I'm very good.
Now spanning BC, Alberta, and Saskatchewan.
MVP.
It's good to be back with you, Mike.
You can hear extended versions of the show, bonus podcasts, and exclusive interviews by following the Celebrate Wrestling podcast feed.
Killer Cross.
I'm actually enjoying this conversation.
Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and wherever fine podcasts are downloaded. Just search and subscribe to Celebrate Wrestling. Welcome back to McGuire on Wrestling.
You're listening to McGuire on Wrestling. We are at the Victoria Pavilion in Calgary, Alberta this week. Again, welcome to our new listeners on AM 1150 in the BC interior. And we will be talking about BC wrestling in the future. But joining me now, my co-commentators from Dungeon Wrestling. You can also hear them on our Celebrate Wrestling podcast feed every Saturday from the Alternate Commentary Table. It's Mitch, Hontzias, DImitri, Korolis. Gentlemen, how are you both?
We are doing great. We are here in the legendary pavilion with the legendary Daddy. This is the best thing I've
Mike
ever heard.
McGuire, Daddy Mike.
Daddy Mike.
Well, congratulations, number one. Isn't this exciting?
Yeah, but congratulations to all of us because, I mean, again, this is a big thing. But, gentlemen, the reason I wanted to have you on is because we talked about it a little bit earlier on in the show with Dave Meltzer. And I have to get your thoughts because I know you both have very passionate feelings about Cody Rhodes.
Ah, yes.
And now, no longer WWE Champion. I loved the way that match ended with Drew basically flopping out of the ring to win the title.
Greatest end to a match that I've seen in years.
When was it on?
Exactly the way it should have been. Exactly the way it should have been.
Can we back up a sec? Sorry, he's not the champion?
Yeah,
you missed out.
Yeah.
Listen,
By
this
the way,
is the greatest day ever.
You're also in Calgary right now. You're on a microphone and you're on a radio show.
Fair.
I'm just clearly you've missed the obvious things in the world. So.
Mike, it's clear. DImitri's dreaming just like I thought I was dreaming when I saw that Cody lost his belt. Greatest day ever.
Well, you know what? It was time for a change. It really was time for a change. And they had to do something. They had to do something with Drew. They got to do something with the Cody. And look, you know what? As much as I never want to see Mitch succeed at anything, that's true. Sometimes he's allowed a little bit.
Thank you.
I don't think that actually means that Mitch succeeded if Cody lost the title. I don't think that
doesn't it? Wait, hold on, Mike.
world?
Doesn't it? Doesn't it? I've been calling this shot for years.
He's already put the house up for sale.
Next on my agenda, McDavid, you're next.
Wow.
Trade Connor.
Trade Connor.
There you have it. Mitch and DImitri from the Alternate Commentary Table, one of our podcasts. And you'll meet more of our podcasters as we roll through the weeks here together on the radio, or if you're already listening on the podcast feed. Thank you so much for that. A big thanks again to our new home, AM 1150 in southern BC, all through the Okanagan. Plan on making our way out there soon. I was already talking to the fine folks at places like Thrash Wrestling and WrestleCore and ASW and letting them know, hey, just so you know, we're going to talk more about the British Columbia wrestling territory in the future here. As for myself, going to be hitting the road soon with Canadian Wrestling's Elite. That's going to take me through southern Saskatchewan and southern Alberta. Also, Dungeon Wrestling going to be making a return to Calgary on February the 15th at the Victoria Pavilion. And more dates to be announced in the future. So if you are ever in any of these areas, you hear me, make sure you find me. And you never know, you could end up on the show. We could just end up sitting here chatting about pro wrestling as we do here. Also, shout out to Vance Nevada, a wrestler I talked about earlier on the show, who has notoriously wrestled through British Columbia throughout the years. Going to be working a show for him in March, a little closer to northern Alberta. And that's just my schedule. And I'm just a radio guy that does wrestling here and there. But when it comes down to you as a fan watching wrestling, boy, do you got a busy week this week. We start off with Monday Night Raw this Monday, which if you're listening on one of our stations in Alberta, the show's already probably aired, because it's going to air on Monday afternoon from Dusseldorf, Germany. Okay, that's Raw this week. And then SmackDown is going to be coming from London, England. Here in Canada, we get Raw and SmackDown, both on Netflix. So we get the live feed. In the U.S., of course, they get the show still on USA Network. So they're going to have the regular airtime. But then we go back to Canada, as a matter of fact. The Bell Centre in Montreal for Friday Night SmackDown on the 23rd. Oh, this is after Northern Ireland, I should say. They're in Ireland on January the 19th for Raw. SmackDown in Montreal, and then Saturday night's main event, January 23rd, 24th. This could be a chance for us to see another Canadian WWE Champion. Just imagine for a second here if Drew McIntyre and Sami Zayn go for the match. Is it going to be another disappointment for Sami Zayn? There were times where this guy from Montreal, Sami Zayn, they've said he should have been the world champion here. He should have been the world champion there. Well, that's, again, what we talk about with the expectation generation. Do we get what we want, or do we get sometimes what they think we need to stay engaged and still care about the wrestling that we watch? They always say if it's done right, they don't even think about the fact that they're walking into a show. They walk in to see what happens. And that's the magic of pro wrestling. Hopefully you can join us here on the show each and every week for that. A couple things I do want to line up here as well. Of course, Thursday night, the debut of TNA Impact on AMC down in the U.S. That'll be on AMC Plus here in Canada as well if you want to watch that show and carry a conversation with other wrestling fans to talk about the big premiere. We're going to have a special discussion thread on the Celebrate Wrestling Facebook page, the social media, this Thursday night for the live premiere. Again, Mike Santana challenging Frankie Kazarian for their world championship. Plus, we got the Hardys in action to kick things off. AJ Styles going to be appearing on the show. This is all very exciting stuff that we'll be able to watch and talk about together. So as long as you want to have fun and you're not a bit of a jerk about it, then we will do just that. CelebrateWrestling.com has, again, the link to all the social media, and you can find us there and follow along on the show. In the future, we're going to have some cool contests for you as well, and a chance for you to even appear on this here program with a segment we call Yay Boo, which usually follows major events. You know what? We might even do a Yay Boo for the TNA Impact debut on AMC. Well, we'll see what the feedback's like. We'll see who's watching. But we'll have that for you. And again, some special guests loaded up for you in the next few weeks. This show is just getting started, and we appreciate you so much for being here. Whether, again, you're a newcomer on AM 1150, if you've been listening for a while on CKXU FM, if you've been listening on the other radio stations that support us across Western Canada, or if you've been following the podcast feed through CelebrateWrestling.com. Either way, cannot thank you all enough so much for being here.
I was just a radio guy with a dream of doing his own wrestling radio talk show, and it's been going for a while now, and it's because of people like you. So thank you for being a part of that. And until next time, friends, as always, thank you for listening and letting me do what I do. Till next week, play safe, drive safe. I've been seeing ya.
McGuire on Wrestling, online and on the radio. You can hear extended versions of the show, bonus podcasts, and exclusive interviews. Just search and subscribe to Celebrate Wrestling. Always free, always about wrestling. CelebrateWrestling.com.